Okay, so we begin with the class. Today's agenda is we are going to discuss session 3 and 4 of fundamentals of computer, and we will be discussing about two types of monitors. One is CRT monitors and the other one is LCD monitor. Tomorrow we will be discussing about LED and OLED monitor. We had started with fundamentals of computer, where we had defined what is a computer. It's an electronic device. We had discussed about data and information. Data represents raw facts or figures, collected text and numbers which are collected over a period of time, and information is processed data. Then we had discussed about hardware, input devices, output devices, software. What are softwares? We had done a small activity, and in the second session we had discussed about what is a system unit. So this is a system unit, all the insides of the CPU box which you see, which you normally cannot see. We start with a 3D animation of motherboard. Everybody please watch this carefully. The purpose of showing this 3D animation of motherboard was just to make you aware that how motherboard looks like, how it why is it known as motherboard. Its other alternate name is main board. It is also known as main board. Main board because it is the main printed circuit board on which different components which are necessary to run your computer properly, smoothly, those components are fit onto it. Okay, now you might have come across a lot many technical jargon in the video, but please don't worry about all that. You don't need to understand or learn about each of the parts of the motherboard. So somebody asked me the question, what is the use of motherboard? Motherboard is a main printed circuit board. It is actually a printed circuit board which helps in running the computer. All important components within system unit are integrated together on the motherboard. So it has slots for your RAM disk. It's actually in the form of a chip. Then your ROM, slots for connecting hard disk, your hard disk drive. Okay, your SMPS, not the SMPS, sorry. It has system buses. That is your ribbon cables, which are used to carry signals from one part to another. Which are used to carry signals from one part to another. Then it has many other slots for your display card, that is your video card, sound card, your modem card or LAN card, which we say. Okay, so all these things, anything you want to fit onto the computer, anything you want to attach to the computer, any peripheral device, it is done using this. And most importantly, it contains the microprocessor chip, which is actually the CPU of your computer. The microprocessor chip is also fit onto the motherboard. So motherboard contains all the important components which are needed for running your computer. This motherboard is a hardware device. Okay, hardware. In order to run the software, you cannot run your softwares without the hardware, right? So your hardware is used for taking all the instructions. Now hardware alone won't work. You need a software to run the hardware. That kind of a software is system software. That is your operating system. So the Windows operating system which you have installed on your computer, that talks to the hardware and it takes commands from you as the user and it executes those commands. It makes the hardware work. Understood? So motherboard is only a hardware device. Understood? Next is, we were talking about a monitor the other day, in which we talked about these few types of monitors. So I'm going to discuss about cathode ray tube today. So how a cathode ray tube works. So you can see over here in this small image, this is the inside of your CRT monitor. Actually, your CRT monitor looks like this. So this cathode ray monitor which you see over here, it is a, you can see that it's quite bulky, it is large in size, and it takes up a lot of space on your tabletop. So why is it so? The reason is because you have this huge picture tube which is there inside your CRT monitor. Understood? There are the various parts over here. You'll come across a bit of physics and chemistry in this section. Cathode. Everybody knows what a cathode does. A cathode is a negatively charged electrode. It's a negative electrode which gives electrons. You know that atoms are the smallest indivisible parts of matter, right? So atoms contain three types of particles: electrons, protons, and neutrons, in which electrons are the negatively charged particles, protons are the positively charged particles, and neutrons are neutral, no charge. So what happens is you have two types of electrodes. Now your science teacher would guide you better in this case if you have already studied them. So two types of electrodes are there, where one is known as cathode, which gives electrons. One is an anode, which takes electrons. Got it? So what happens over here is this cathode, it shoots electrons. And when it shoots electrons, the electrons pass through the accelerating anodes. And here, with the help of the deflection coils, actually the deflection coils are used to generate a magnetic field. Why magnetic field? Because magnetic field will be doing the work of deflecting these rays. So these rays could be deflected in any way. So, and these rays, this electron beam is focused on a phosphor screen, a phosphorescent screen. Phosphorescent screen is a screen which is sensitive to light. Wherever the electrons will strike the phosphorus screen, that point on the screen will glow. Now, one thing you should know, that a screen contains numerous dots. Those dots are known as pixels. Each pixel is divided into 3 subpixels. A red subpixel, a green subpixel, and a blue subpixel. Okay, so red, green, and blue subpixels. Every dot is divided into these 3 subpixels. Now, wherever the electron beam strikes the pixels, it glows those subpixels, and because of which we are able to see the image on the screen. Take a look at this small animation. This is how your cathode ray tube works. Okay, so your cathode ray tube works in this way. Let us go through the points. It consists of a specialized vacuum tube. Images are produced when an electron beam strikes a phosphorescent surface, a surface which is sensitive to light, and it is sensitive, it glows when electrons strike it. It modulates, accelerates, and deflects electron beams. Modulates, accelerates means, for the time being, you should only understand that a picture tube, with the help of these deflection coils, it is able to generate magnetic field so as to deviate or change the direction of these electron beams. So these electron beams, they are deviated in this way. They are, you can see how the magnetic field is changing the direction of the electron beams. So wherever the electron beams strike the screen, the image or the pattern is created. Okay, most desktop computer displays make use of CRT for image displaying purposes. Now CRT was the oldest type of monitor which we used to use a few years ago, but now it is almost towards its extinction. Even LCD is towards the extinction. Mostly we use OLED televisions. Okay, what is OLED we will be discussing in the coming days. Now I will show you a small animation of CRT with which it would be clear to you how CRT monitors work. How a CRT monitor works, right? So it for every subpixel, your CRT monitor contains electron guns which are of three different colors. One is for red, one is for green, and one is for blue components. So each of these electron guns, they hit the subpixels in an appropriate way so as to create the image on the screen. Any questions for CRT monitor, please ask. Students, you don't have to get into dig deeper into each of these topics, because for your syllabus you only need to know what is how many types of monitors are there. That's other thing, that I am giving you an extra insight into each of these types. So don't be too perplexed. Okay, only study what you need to study, right? Don't get into the details of the physics and chemistry behind the working of it. So we move on to the next one, that is LCD, liquid crystal displays. Now LCDs are a significant improvement from CRT because it takes up very less space. You might have seen LCD monitors hung up on the walls. So they take up less space, they are energy efficient, they consume less electricity as compared to CRT monitors, and they use an entirely different technology, that is liquid crystals. So we'll go into the details of what is liquid crystal display. Liquid crystal display technology works by blocking light. An LCD is made of two pieces of polarized glass, also called substrate, that contain a liquid crystal material between them. A backlight creates light that passes through the first substrate. At the same time, electrical currents cause the liquid crystal molecules to align to allow varying levels of light. These are the notes for you to write, but I am not going to tell them right now. I am going to explain to you LCD in detail. So, at a glance, you can see the overall structure of LCD, the layers, the various layers which are sandwiched within your LCD screen. So these are all the layers. You have a backlight there, which is normally a CCFL backlight. A CCFL backlight. So this is actually, its full form is cold cathode fluorescent light. You might have seen CFL lights, CFL bulbs. You purchase from the market and you attach it to the bulb socket, and it gives a kind of a light which is evenly spread across the room, a very subtle light, right? A very soft light, which we say. Normally these kinds of lights are used by photo studio people, by photographers, in order to create a very even ambience which contains a light ambience, such that even if you have slight wrinkles on your faces, or if you have some subtle marks on your faces, those will get hidden because of that light. So normally there is a backlight which is made out of CFL, and you have various layers in between, right? So what are those layers? Out of which the very important layer is this layer, which you can see here, which is actually liquid crystal layer. We are going to see what type of a material is actually liquid crystal. Then you have polarizing films over here. You have a TFT, thin film transistor film, or a layer in between. I will explain what it does. Basically, it does the work of controlling the amount of light which falls on each of the pixels over here. So you see color filter over here. The color filter, they are used, you can see there are three components for every pixel: red, green and blue. So the amount of light which falls on each of those color filters, it creates variation in colors. So here we go to the next one. What are liquid crystals? So you can see over here, liquid crystal is actually a state of matter between solids and liquids. They are substances which have properties of both solids and liquids. So they can represent conventional solids also, conventional liquids also. How? We know that in solids, molecules are closely packed. They are very compact and they cannot move. Whereas in liquids, the molecules can move to a certain extent, move freely to a certain extent. Now there is a state in between liquids and solids which is known as liquid crystal state, right? This is a special type of a state which is in between solids and liquids. So we have liquid crystal, which is a state in between solids and liquids. It has properties of both solids as well as liquids. How? It has molecules which can move freely to certain extent, but they won't go very far from each other. And they have a property of aligning themselves if electric current or light passes through them. They allow light to pass through them, and they can align themselves or whenever electricity passes through them. So normally they come in three phases: nematic phase, symmetric phase and cholesteric phase. So you can see a kind of a helical structure being formed in the cholesteric phase. So any liquid crystal which is in this phase is used for your LCD monitors. Now liquid crystals in itself is a detailed topic of discussion in chemistry, so no, I'm not going deep into it. It is just to tell you what are liquid crystals. Examples of liquid crystal substances could be the cholesterol, which are normally many, you might have heard about people um, developing heart disease because of extra cholesterol being accumulated in the veins, okay, in the arteries. So that cholesterol is something which can be considered as liquid crystal. Okay, so certain types of materials which exist between solids and liquids, they are used as liquid crystals. A liquid crystal may flow like a liquid, but its molecules may be oriented in a crystal-like way. So normally this is how liquid crystals, they appear. Okay, they can align themselves in a certain fashion whenever light passes through them. Now, next we come to the other part, that is what is polarized light, because these two things, liquid crystals and polarization of light, these are the two very important principles behind the working of your LCD monitor. Now, normally a polarizer film would be something of this type. You can see vertical ridges on it. Normally light is actually what? Electromagnetic radiation. Light is actually electromagnetic radiation which propagates in all directions. Normally it should be something like this. It propagates in all directions. But if you make this light pass through a polarized plate, say a vertical polarization plate, what will happen? The polarization plate would block all the other beams of light, and it will only allow the vertical beams of light to pass through. Got it? Like you can see over here, it is only allowing the vertical beams of light to pass through. So this is unpolarized light and this is what? Polarized light. It somewhat represents the sunglasses which you use. So when you wear sunglasses, you might have seen that it blocks excess sunlight. It doesn't block the entire light, but to some extent it blocks excess sunlight. So light waves, all the light waves are not allowed to pass through the glass. Only few light waves are allowed to pass through, and this is polarized light. So some amount of light is filtered, and that filtered light reaches your eyes, because of which your eyes are protected from the extra glare of the sunlight, right? So now we'll see how polarization and liquid crystals, they help in creating images on the screen. So this is a setup. Just look at the figure A over here. So you have the color filter here, you have a horizontal polarizing plate, and you have a vertical polarizing plate, and in between you have the liquid crystal layer. And there is a backlight, CCFL backlight, which is the source of light, and backlight is generated. So right now here, electricity is not passing through this. So what happens when electricity doesn't pass through? You can see that these liquid crystal molecules, they get arranged in a helical fashion, just like DNA, somewhat in a twisted fashion, right? So you can see that the crystal which is just adjacent to this vertical polarizing plate, it will allow light to pass through, and it will bend the light a little. Then the next crystal will bend it a little more, then it will bend a little more, and as the light reaches the horizontal plate, it has completely bended into a horizontal beam of light. Earlier it was vertical beam of light, and the moment it reaches this last crystal, it has become a horizontal beam of light. And this horizontal beam of light, it strikes the color filters, and the color filter glows. Understood? But when it is in the on state, when electricity is made to pass through this, what happens is all these crystals, they get aligned in a straight manner. So now what happens, the vertical light rays which are passing through the vertical polarizer plate, they cannot pass through the crystals, and hence they cannot reach the color filter layer. So this creates darkness on the particular point on the screen. So by controlling the amount of electricity which can be made to pass or not pass, or pass at different intensities, at different levels, the amount of light which falls on the color filter can be regulated, controlled, and this generates what? Your picture on the screen. This generates the image on your screen. Okay. So when no electric field is applied, the helical structure of the liquid crystal molecules rotates the vertically polarized light so that it can pass the second horizontal polarizer. When an electric field is applied, then molecules tend to align with the electric field, distort, and finally break the helical structure so that the backlight is blocked by the horizontal polarizer and the respective subpixel appears opaque. Got it? So we'll see how this works, how LCD works through this short animation. In the previous class, we have seen different types of mice. So today we are going to see keyboard. We'll quickly see what is a keyboard. Everybody, all of you already know what a keyboard is. So here you can see a block diagram of keyboard which contains a lot of different keys, where we have the alphabetic keys, we have we have function keys over here, we have numeric keys this side, and we have numeric keypad here, which is for quick figure typing or typing numbers quickly. And we have keys for punctuation and modifiers. We have navigator keys over here and different other types of keys. So we'll see how many types of keyboards are there. Basically, there are two major types. One is the basic keyboard, which contains 104 keys. the one which I am using right now, and one is extended, which contains some additional keys along with the basic 104 keys. Normally, you can see nowadays you get an extended keyboard like this, which you can attach to your laptop, and that is basically for working with numbers, right? So this is a keyboard, a typical keyboard for Macintosh computers, that is Apple computers, which consists of 15 function keys plus numeric keypad. Some other types of keyboards, you can see this is a multimedia keyboard and plus an ergonomic keyboard also, that is this area over here, this is for your left hand and this is for your right hand, and you can work very easily and comfortably with this. This is a mechanical key. Now normally what happens is the usual keyboards which you have, they have soft keys. Under the keys you find a small printed circuit board on which there are connectors which are soldered into rubber. Okay, so this creates a contact. Whenever you press a key, it creates a contact with the PCB, and that is how keys are interpreted. But there are certain keys which are mechanical keys. Instead of a soldered rubber contact on your printed circuit board, they have small switches below them, because of which you can hear a click sound. So these type of keys are basically used for gaming. Wireless keys, wireless keyboard, you already know it comes with a wireless adapter. You need to attach it to the CPU of your computer, and you will not find your table cluttered with wire. Ergonomical. Now ergonomy is a type of, it's a branch of science which deals with how to make working on computer, working for long hours on computer comfortable. Okay, many a times we tend to develop, say, several kinds of ailments like wrist pain or joint pains on our fingers because of working for long hours. So ergonomical keyboards, they reduce the discomfort while working on the computer. So you can see this type of a keyboard which is aligned according to our hand, and we can place our hands comfortably, so working will not be a very difficult task. Virtual keyboards, you might have seen an on-screen keyboard. I'll show it to you right on the computer. Go to start and just type here keyboard, and you get this option on-screen keyboard, and it quickly opens this on-screen keyboard, right? So these are virtual keyboards. So these are various types of keyboards which you see. So the basic components of computers you have seen. Now today we are starting with session 3, that is introducing CPU, Central Processing Unit. I'm going to go a little faster, students. Okay, so over sorry. This is a block diagram of your computer which consists of your input unit, output unit, storage unit, which consists of primary as well as secondary storage, and it consists of the CPU. CPU consists of 3 parts: CU, ALU, and storage. So storage is actually also considered a part of your CPU. So I'll quickly elaborate the different parts within the CPU. CPU, we know it is central processing unit. CU stands for control unit, which is actually brain for your computer. ALU stands for arithmetic and logic unit. And MU stands for memory unit or storage unit, within which we have 2 types of memory, primary and secondary. Now, primary memory consists of RAM and ROM, and secondary consists of your devices like your hard disk drive, your floppy drive. Although floppy drive is obsolete now, we don't use it in even computer. If you purchase a new computer, you will never get a floppy drive installed on it. You use optical drives like your CD, DVD, Blu-ray discs. These are all your optical drives. Okay, you use your pen drives, that is your removable drives, external hard drives. So these all are secondary storage devices, right? So Primary storage, that is RAM, stands for random access memory, and ROM stands for read only memory. Random access memory, now when I talk about RAM, it is known as random access memory because it stores everything and you can access any data from anywhere. You don't have to move sequentially. That is, data is normally stored in the form of blocks. You will have memory cells like this. So you don't have to start checking from the beginning, and you don't have to jump or check each and every room over here. Rather, it enables you to access data from anywhere within the memory. That is the reason why it is known as random access memory. And moreover, it is a volatile memory. Volatile means if electricity goes off, whatever is stored in RAM, it will be completely erased from RAM. Got it? If electricity goes off, if you switch off your computer, or if your computer stops working abruptly, whatever is there in RAM will be completely removed. Understood? But the thing is, it works very fast. It works faster than any other device except the CPU. Please remember, students, that CPU is the fastest working device. Nothing can work faster than the processor. Okay, so RAM is the only device whose speed is somewhat near to that of CPU. Understood? So for executing any program, it is important that that particular program or software has to be loaded into the RAM before it executes on the CPU. So CPU is actually a processor. Processor, that is, which executes tasks or which executes programs to enable us to carry out our tasks. What are software? Softwares are also programs. They are actually large programs. So in order to execute softwares, we need to place the software in the RAM to run the programs. Got it? So RAM is usually very expensive, even a more expensive as compared to hard disk drive, and it is available in limited quantities. But today you can find RAM which extends up to 32 GB and even up to 1 terabytes. Okay, it all depends upon the amount of money you are ready to spend on that. Got it? So this is RAM. ROM stands for read only memory. That is, on your motherboard, you saw the animation of motherboard some time ago. It contains a small chip which has the program BIOS into it. So BIOS is generally a program which is embedded onto the ROM chip by computer manufacturers. Those who create the computers or those who create the motherboard or the chip, they actually embed the program within the ROM BIOS, and that is because they don't want anybody to change that. But today we have such different types of ROMs like EEPROM, EEPROM, which enable us to change that. But only you can attempt to do it only when you are a hardware expert, not otherwise. So this ROM BIOS is used during booting up of the computer. When your computer starts, this ROM BIOS will perform a complete check of all the resources of your computer, and it will help your computer to start, that is to boot. Starting of a computer is termed as booting. Booting of the computer is the technical term for starting the computer. Got it? So apart from this, now you have CU, which is the control unit, ALU, which is the arithmetic and logic unit. All the different operations take place within the arithmetic and logic unit, and memory unit we already discussed. Coming to ALU, here you can perform all kinds of arithmetic operations. What are the arithmetic operations? Addition, subtraction, your multiplication. Now I will use the actual multiplication symbol which is used in computers, that is the asterisk sign. Okay, this sign is known as asterisk. Okay, and it represents what? Multiplication. Division, that is your slash, and another operator, that is your percentage, which is whose work here is not for percentage, but it is actually a remainder operator. That is, if you divide anything, if you divide 4 by 2, what will be the remainder? Can anybody tell me? The remainder will be 0, not modulate. Vedika, modulation is a different, completely different concept. Okay, that is related to networking, light, and all those things. Here it means modulus. You can use the term modulus for this. It is actually modulus. Understood? Remainder operator. When you divide the dividend with the divisor, you get two things. One is your quotient and one is your remainder. So quotient you get if the operation is this 4 divided by 2, where slash stands for division operator. Whereas remainder will be 4 mod 2, where percentage stands for the modulus operator. When you study programming next in 11th class, if you opt for computer science, you will study all these operators. Got it? So all these types of operations are done by the ALU, plus it also does logic functions. That is taking decisions. In a short while, we will understand how to take decisions. Right? What do we actually understand by taking decision? We can check, like if A is greater than B, then print that A is greater, else B is greater. So such type of things you might have seen in computer programs. Understood? So we are going to see how your computer functions. You give data and instructions using the input devices. What are the input devices? We have already seen over here. These are our output devices. So control unit is the brain of the computer, brain of the CPU, as I already said. So you can see it is connected via dotted lines. That shows that it is controlling the operations of all the different units. It will instruct from where the data and instruction has to be taken, where it will be going. Either it will go to the computer, that is ALU directly, or it will go to the secondary storage. It will be stored somewhere on the hard disk. Then from the hard disk, the input has to come to your primary storage. From there, it has to go where? Into ALU for any kind of operations, that is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus, or any logic decision has to be taken. It will be handled by the ALU. From there, data could again go back to primary storage, and if the user thinks that it has to be saved somewhere in a file, that can be saved onto your secondary storage. Again, later on, it can be retrieved from there, and this can be displayed via output devices, that is monitor, printer, LED screen, or speakers. Understood? So this is how work is done. So control unit handles the entire process, where the data is coming from, where is it going, how it is to be stored, how it has to be executed, how it has to be displayed or printed. Everything is handled by the control unit of the computer. Is this clear to everybody, students? Okay. Fine. We go to the next part. What is a control unit? So I'm going to show you a small flow chart over here. We start a program, we read two values, that is we get two values from the user enters two values, x and y. For example, over here I'll take x as say 45 and y as say 87. Got it? These are the two values which are entered by the user. Now what do? We check, is x greater than y? Answer the question. Which one is greater? My question asked is x greater than y? No, x is not greater than y. That means what will happen? Will you print this? Will you print x is greater number? No. You will check the next course of action. If x is not greater than y, then the program should print what? Y is the greater number. Got it? And then it will go to the last stage, that is stop. So here, depending upon the values, your program path was like this. This was your program path. Had it been some other value, students, I have 10 more minutes. So again, please be ready. Whenever it stops, please rejoin, right? Now, suppose the values are changed. Next time when the user executes the program, he enters these values. X is 100 and Y is 75. So in this case, which number is greater? We'll start from here. User enters the value. Is X greater than Y? Yes. So now it will follow the second course of action and then it will move to stop. So what is this? What does the control unit does? It will first fetch the instructions. The control unit will first fetch the instructions and within that fetch the instructions from where? From the hard disk, right? Store them in RAM, that is in your primary memory. Start from first instruction. It will pick up the first instruction. It will decode the first instruction. What is decode? That whatever is written, it will find the meaning of the first instruction. What is the first instruction over here? Read X and Y. That is, first of all, it will ask for the values of X and Y from the user. How will the user enter the values? It has to be entered from the keyboard. Obviously, it cannot be entered by the mouse. Provided you follow the long path, that is, you switch on the on-screen keyboard, then you click the buttons for the numbers, that's a different thing. But generally, what is being used ultimately? The keyboard is being used. Then it will send the instruction where? Now the control unit decides that this has to be executed by what? The input device. Where the data has to be stored? Data has to be stored in the memory. And from memory, data has to be fetched. It has to be sent to where? The ALU. For taking this decision, after taking the decision, whatever it is, yes or no, depending on that, data has to be displayed. Displayed where? Output device. And once it is displayed, if there are other statements in the program, again the cycle will go back. It will start again, or else once the cycle is over, it will come to a stop. So this is what is known as, students, please make a note of these points over here. Decode the first instruction. Read values from the input device, basically the keyboard, or you can take a screenshot once I complete writing. Read values from the input device, send them to the memory, that is to the RAM, then fetch the values, send them to ALU for processing, then send the output to output device. So this follows a fetch, decode, execute cycle. Fetch the instruction, decode the instruction, execute the instruction. Then again fetch the instruction, decode the instruction, execute the instruction. And this continues till the program completes its execution successfully. Got it? It's creating a heart shape over here. Okay, fine. Next is computer's performance. How is CPU speed measured? So normally CPU speed is measured in megahertz and gigahertz. Clock speed, it is actually referred as clock speed. There is a CPU clock, students, which ticks. With every tick, an instruction is executed. And this clock ticks multiple times in a second. In 1 second, it can tick some 1 billion times. So 1 billion instructions can be executed with one tick. So if suppose the clock speed of your computer is 5 gigahertz, then it could execute around 5 billion instructions per second. Got it? So computer's speed is measured in hertz, megahertz or gigahertz. Megahertz used to be earlier, but nowadays usually it is gigahertz. Memory size up to 32 GB RAM, it is available. And sometimes if you are going for gaming computers with very high configuration, you can also get up to 64 GB of RAM or 1 terabyte of RAM. Okay. Number of applications running on computer. Now you might be thinking, what is this GB? What is this terabyte, TB? So let me tell you one thing. We start from the very basic, that is a binary digit. It is known as a bit. One bit can be either 0 or 1. Group of 8 bits makes what? 1 byte. Now I'll write it in this way. 1 byte equals how much? 8 bits. Now 1 KB, 1 kilobyte would be what? Around 1024 bytes. 1 MB will be 1024 KB, kilobytes. 1 GB will be 1024 MB. 1 terabyte will be 1024 gigabytes. Understood? So you can understand now how it goes on increasing, right? So 32 GB of RAM in itself is a lot. My computer through which I'm giving you the presentation, it contains 16 GB RAM. Yes, Kartikeya Singh. So this is 16 GB of RAM on which my computer is running right now. That is because I have installed some very heavy applications like Adobe Premiere Pro, Adobe After Effects, Wondershare, Filmora, through which I generally used for editing these videos and uploading them on YouTube. Okay, so all these things are there. Next is, there is a small activity, fill in the blanks. We'll do it in some time. First, I'm going to explain the other things, working of a computer. A computer follows the input, process and output cycle. And in between there is storage also. Take input, give it to the processor. In between, the processor can use the storage also, give the output using the output device. So take data and instructions from the user, process the data using instructions, display the processed data. This is your input, process and output cycle. Let us see a small analogy from our daily life. You want to, now nothing can be delightful in this hot summer than a glass of chilled cold coffee with ice cream, my personal favorite. Okay, so you can see over here in the first image, these are the ingredients which you use for making cold coffee. So this can be referred as what? Can you think and tell me? Ingredients, you have a blender which you will be using for blending all those ingredients, and finally you'll have a chilled glass of cold coffee served. So what will you say when it comes to ingredients? What are these? Input, very good, wonderful. So this is the input which we will be giving. There should be a processor. What is the processor over here? Blender. Exactly. The blender is going to mix all these together. It's the only work of the blender, and hence it is this is doing the work of process. And finally, when you get the finished product, that is your output. Understood? Yes. So this is an analogy from your daily. So this is an analogy talking about a computer. Tables in a database, they are the input. Give the input to the computer, computer processes them, and finally what you get is the processed data in the form of reports, charts, graphs, histograms, and all. Understood? So this is the IPO cycle, that is input process output cycle of the computer. We'll quickly do a short assessment over here, students. Tell me, input refers to the process of feeding data or instructions in a computer. What will be the answer? Input refers to the process of feeding data. Answer is true. Yes. Second one, dash refers to the work done by the computer with the help of hardware and software. You can say not output, but answer would be process. Processing refers to the work. Obviously you are using the hardware also and the software also for processing. Dash unit processes the data as per the given command. It's an ambiguous one. You have the same answer to both. The processor or the processing unit or central processing unit, I should give it in a better way. The central processing unit processes the data as per the given command. Next is output refers to the result that is obtained when the computer processes the input. In this, I think the answer is true. Now consider this figure. Identify A, B, C, and D from the following options. Over here, the options I have not given you. Let me give you the options. Or you could yourself identify and tell me. A could refer what? Input. C can refer output. B will refer to processor. D will refer to memory or memory plus CU. Memory as well as control unit. So this is input, processor, output, and memory plus control unit. Got it? We have a small video over here. I will show you the video later on. We have one more assessment to do. Yes. Please do this in your copy quickly right now and give me the answer. The dash of CPU is measured in megahertz or gigahertz. Speed, very good. The dash unit extracts instructions from the computer memory, decodes and executes instructions, and takes help of ALU if required. Yes, control unit, very good. A special program called supervisor is responsible for controlling the system operations. I'll give you the answer to this question. It is true. That supervisor is actually your control unit. Sorry, special program. That this supervisor is actually your operating system which you are using. I'll give you the term over here. Operating system which you use, that is your Windows, Android, then iOS. These all are what? Operating systems. Got it? So today we have seen the two parts of today's class. Last thing, quickly take out your copy, students. We are yet to discuss what are adverbs. We have already discussed adverbs. We will only practice adverbs today. Okay, quickly take out your copies, and I'm going to type the question and the statements over here. Before that, I would like you people to quickly take a quick look at what are adverbs. We'll quickly revise adverbs. So, adverbs, take a very good look. Words which modify the meaning of a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. In the first sentence, Rama runs quickly. The adverb quickly modifies what? The verb runs. In the second statement, very, it modifies the adjective sweet. And in the third one, quite clearly. So quite modifies what? Clearly. So look over here. Clearly modifies reads and quite modifies clearly. Some other statements are over here, which we have, if you have seen the lecture video, then you would have understood it. So some adverbs, they modify verbs. Some adverbs, they modify adjectives. Like quite pretty, more interesting. Some adverbs modify other adverbs. Very noisily, quite easily. Some adverbs modifying phrases. This we'll skip it for the time being. Adverbs modifying whole sentences like probably, possibly, certainly, evidently. Then adverb of time, which asks the question when. I have done this before. I shall now begin to work. So these are adverbs of time. I have spoken to him already. He once met me in Cairo. I have not seen him since. Okay. Wasted time never returns, never. Adverb of frequency, how often something takes place. Take a good look at the examples here. I have told you twice. So twice, often, again, these are all adverbs of frequency. They tell us how often an action is taking place. Adverbs of place, where, stand here, go there, everywhere, up, out. Adverb of manner, how, in what manner. Bravely, well, hard, soundly. Adverbs of quantity, how much, to what degree or to what extent. Too careless, too, almost, fully, very stormy, enough, so, altogether. Affirmation and negation, those which state a particular statement where something is being taken in a positive manner, that is your affirmation, that is surely you are mistaken. I do not know him. So not is what? It is the adverb of negation. I will definitely do that project. Definitely is adverb of affirmation. Adverb of reason. He is hence unable to refute. So hence, therefore, because, these all are adverbs of reason. Right. So we are quickly going to see the examples now. Write the question. In the following exercise, pick out the adverb, mention its type, and also specify the verb, adjective, or another adverb which it modifies. So listen very carefully. The question says clearly, in the following exercise, pick out the adverb, mention its type, and also specify the verb, adjective, or another adverb which it modifies. As an example, I give the first one, that is, he was ill pleased. So in this, I can see very clearly that ill is the adverb. Now, what type of an adverb? It is adverb of manner. How pleased he was? It is asking the question how. So ill pleased. And what is it modifying? It is modifying the word pleased. And pleased is what? He was ill pleased. That means it is modifying an adjective. Here pleased is not the verb, student. We are saying he was pleased. So this pleased word, it is actually referring to the pronoun over here. That is he. Anything which governs a pronoun, not governs, which describes a pronoun or a noun, that is your adjective. So here it is adjective. Got it? So you don't have to tell which type of adjective over here, just you have to highlight the word which is being modified. So pleased is the adjective which is being modified by the adverb of manner, ill. So this is how you have to write the answer. Got it? So I'm going to give you other questions over here. Try again. He is too shy. We ran very early. I am so glad to hear it. Cut it lengthwise. I'll keep it short today. Quickly solve these 5 questions, 2 to 6, and give me the answer. If you have completed, give me a quick yes through chat, then I'll understand that you have completed the work. So everybody has completed. Let me reveal the answers. Next one is try again. So again is the adverb, and it is adverb of frequency over here because it is saying try again. How many times? Again, right? So it is modifying what? Try, and try is what? It is a verb. He is too shy. How shy? To what extent? So this is adverb of little shy, very shy, too shy. So this is adverb of quantity. Okay. And what is it modifying? Shy. Shy is what? It is adjective. Next is we ran very early. So now over here you have 2 adverbs. One is early, and this is the adverb of time. Very early. It's showing a point of time. And it modifies what? It modifies the verb ran. And there is another one that is very. That is adverb of quantity. To what extent did he run early? Adverb of quantity, and it modifies what? The adverb early. Got it? Next is I am so glad to hear it. So is the adverb. Now I say so glad. So over here you can see that it is trying to say, ask a question, how much or to what extent. So glad is the adverb of quantity, and it modifies what? Glad. And glad is what? Adjective. Okay. cut it lengthwise. So lengthwise, that is adverb of manner. And what am I trying to do it? Cut it lengthwise. That is how it has to be. What is being done lengthwise? It is being cut. So cut is the verb which it modifies. Is this clear to everybody? Is adverbs clear to everyone? Okay, fine. So we complete today's class. We conclude today's class. We have completed all whatever we had planned. We discussed session 3 and session 4 of unit 6. We discussed about CRT and LCD monitors in detail, saw a few videos also, and we also practiced adverbs. For tomorrow, we will be taking up session 5 and 6. You have 4 more sessions left in unit 6. So and these are very short topic, students. Okay, so next class is tomorrow 10:30 a.m. same time, and we are going, because this is our last week and we are almost nearing completion of our unit test syllabus. Your unit test syllabus is unit 1 and unit 6. Okay, 2 units you'll be getting, 2 meaty units, very large units. So you'll be getting unit 1 is very large, whereas unit 6 is very small. So your unit test portion is unit 1 and unit 6 of your textbook. And we will be taking up tomorrow session 5 and 6. So I sign off today. We'll meet tomorrow. Thank you everyone. Have a good day.